What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic.
I'm Jammin.
And we have yet another album review for you, and one that has been on my radar as of recently, especially when I found out who was in it. We are going to go over the debut album from Idle Heirs, Life is Violence. This also comes out on the 11th of April on Relapse Records. This band formed, I think, last year in Kansas City, Missouri, I assume. As I said, this is the debut album from this band, and it pretty much started off as a collab between Sean Ingram, formerly of COALESCE, which I am a big COALESCE fan, and oddly enough brought them up not too long ago in the Missouri States of Metal. Maybe I willed this band into existence. I didn't. Though, it'd be kind of cool if I did have that power. That'd be pretty awesome. But this was, again, a collab between him and producer Josh Barber, who's known for his work with bands like Norma Jean and The Devil Wears Prada. And I don't know, like, this became, like, I guess an outlet, namely for Sean. This is his first appearance on a recorded album in, I believe, about 10 years. I think his last appearance was on the Ox EP, which was the companion to Ox, which was COALESCE's last album. And then I guess he kind of grew disenchanted with the whole music scene and kind of, just left it behind. But apparently he still had songs in him. And well, this definitely is not like COALESCE, though. I mean, if you're a longtime COALESCE fan like me, you'd still want to check it out because this is gloomy post-metal, I would say, is probably the best descriptor here. It's miserable and dark and very cathartic, especially when you get into the lyrics. And it's moody, it shifts around a lot. It's kind of like the weather here, which the other night it was snowing and raining and there was lightning because Ohio.
Yep.
That's just how we roll here. The weather's stupid.
As you see, we're still in hoodies, so we're not making it up. It's still a little chilly outside. Yeah, so of course, debut album, I'd never heard this band, but in essence, I've heard, kind of this band. I was a COALESCE fan in, late high school, and then a little bit in the mid-2000s or so when I was into, math metal and, again, post-metal, and then this band sounds like a myriad of bands that I'm already a giant fan of, so I guess you could say that this might be kind of what you expect it to be, but not at all.
It
it's
depends. Weird. It depends on what your expectations are. If you had heard any of the singles, I will say that there's a lot of stuff that this is comparable to that I didn't expect to be making comparisons to. So this is just kind of a different animal and a different outlet for Sean in general. And I really didn't have anything musically to go on with Josh Barber because he's generally the guy behind all the knobs and such. But man, what we got was just this huge, lush, like, I would call it dark, but it's like hues of gray. Like, this whole album has like sort of the vibe and setting of, I don't know, like isolation, like, someplace in the middle of the woods where there's like a mist hanging over it. It's very overcast, dreary, and big extreme shifts between like, intimate, just very sullen, withdrawn moments to loud, voracious, heavy, dark sections.
Angry, screaming in a room, dark, anguish, by yourself with a lit candle and like a bottle of wine and just yourself like sitting in a corner just staring at the wall.
This whole album has a very cathartic feel, and it starts right away with the opening track, Loose Tooth. You get these hums of synths in the background and then clean guitars, and well, something that I really had to get used to because I don't think I ever really heard Sean sing very much, especially in the COALESCE days. A lot of clean vocals. And his clean vocals are awesome. They're very breathy. Like, a lot of this, I would say, is very comparable to Catatonia.
And the Ocean.
Yeah. It's got like a little bit of a gruffness to it, but that sort of flutter in his vocals, that light crooning. If you've been listening to Catatonia for years, it's going to sound very familiar. And this being post-metal, lots of these big, steady builds. But there are some interesting wrinkles to it. Like, apparently a big inspiration behind this was Cult of Luna, which
Makes
if
sense.
you're a post-metal fan, you should be listening to Cult of Luna. If you've listened to a ton of post-metal and just skipped that band, you skipped kind of a big one for post-metal. Yeah. And this does a lot of, what they do in terms of like the steady building, like the dropouts. Post-metal in general is excellent about building up and building out, like expanding the sound, making it more intense, making it more biting, and then shrinking it back down to like the most intimate of moments. Great examples of this, Lemonade Stands and Rare Bird. Both of these songs have these huge build-ups to like super heavy moments where Sean gets to growl his guts out, and there's that little bit of familiarity with COALESCE that comes out, but then kind of shrinking it back down to like quiet, clean passages. Lemonade Stands in particular. There's something about that just screams like this is the post-metal score to a David Lynch film that never got made.
Because it's got this super groovy spot. They isolate the drum and bass a bunch to set up these grooves, which I think is really cool. But the kicker in Lemonade Stand, for me at least, was on top of that groove, they've got this kind of like desert rock, spacey melody that just gives it kind of like an eerie vibe.
There's like shimmering, twangy guitars. Again, like stuff you would associate with like a David Lynch film, but you know, it's dark and unsettling. And instead of, well, building into a weird plot twist that may or may not make sense, because that's a lot of David Lynch, it builds into these big, heavy, biting sections, like dissonant, dense, sludgy guitars, Sean howling his guts out and just sounding absolutely distraught and fucking devastated. And I haven't like dove into all the lyrics, only some of them, and believe me, this is a very intensely personal album, but that gives me like a big connection with it because it's very human. They're not talking about, you know, wizards, dragons, zombies, and all that shit. Like stuff you can disconnect with. Like, you know, like, oh yeah, that's just, you know, horror movie bullshit. Right. This is very real, very harrowing emotion that is going into it, and it's matched by the music. The music is as dynamic as all of the big twists and turns in the vocals.
Dead Ringer, in my opinion, is a great example of this. As far as the different groove dynamics are concerned, starts off kind of chuggy. It's got this cool like staccato syncopation in the beginning, and then it just explodes into this big off-time jam. But another thing that really separates these kind of groovy, jammy moments is the fact that they add in extra percussion. It's not noticeable right away because a lot of the drum passages and the grooves are very tribal anyway, but like you notice these little nuances, like it sounds like there's bongos in a part or extra percussion in the groove. Pillow Talk kind of does the same thing with the drum brushes and the rim shots and such, but I like that they add more percussion instead of adding an extra layer of synths or sound or whatever. It just kind of makes these songs pop a little bit more.
Yeah, there's a lot of like percussive elements that remind me of Cult of Luna, like those like kind of hi-hat stomps that they like to do, the kind of like, you know, drive it. That's about as fast as it gets to. Like it's, you know, generally pretty mid-tempo to slow, but it's that constant build. Dim Shepherd in particular is just one steady build throughout pretty much the entire song. Great vocals on it. I love the vocals on pretty much this entire album, but I like that one in particular because you can hear him get more intense as the song gets more intense. It builds in layers. You know, one of the awesome things about post-metal is, you know, construction and then deconstructing the song. You can hear it pretty much with each layer coming in. And the use of extra percussion and synths on here is awesome because it's done very subtly. Like, it's not to the point where you can hear it in every track, like, oh yeah, they're doing like a tribal pattern over here or like a big loud synth. For the most part, the synths are very much the background, like kind of a dull hum that's just sort of like ambient. And the percussion stuff, generally it's a lot of big floor tom hits, kind of accent the drums a little bit more, or like a little tribal passage every now and then, or even some additional like cymbal stuff too. I think there's like some additional cymbals on whatever extra drums they're using, but it's where they come in though. They're generally building into these huge swells of music and layers and dense guitars and, again, a ton of emotion. And even in the quieter moments on here, like the use of open space on this album, I think is great because you can hear things echoing in the distance and how they pan or maybe kind of like move around in the background. The atmosphere in here is constantly with you, and it constantly keeps this, again, very drab and gray, but you know, to a post-metal fan, that's generally pretty interesting. That's kind of how you want it.
Most of it is a slow burn, too. Again, especially on Dim Shepherd. That song's, 9 minutes and some change? So,
about that.
Yeah. I would imagine that Josh Barber did the production on this as well. I would imagine.
He twisted some knobs on here. Like, this sounds great. Like, I love the production here. Everything sounds rich and full. The layers on here are amazing, and none of it collides as mud or anything like that. Like, everything sounds crystal clear, but it also sounds organic. The drums on here sound amazing. That snare sounds like someone firing a shotgun in a canyon, and I fucking love it.
Sounds kind of like what Kurt Ballou does with drums, to be honest. I hear that in here. He didn't do anything with this record, but it reminds me of that. Just big, thunderous cannons just for everything.
The guitars, whether they're clean or, just heavy, they have a great tone to them. Mm-hmm. Lots of these big, shimmering tremolo passages, too. Like, there's points on here where it almost feels like, like Cave-In's Jupiter, except, like, the darker, more menacing point. Like, this was like the, logical stop in between, like, Jupiter and Until Your Heart Stops, because the difference between those two albums is kind of night and day. Yeah. I'll also say, for as heavy as this gets, there's a lot of moments on here that, in a twisted universe next door, maybe this is what Russian Circles sounds like with a vocalist. And if Russian Circles ever decide to get a vocalist and Sean was available, I would say fucking go for it.
Yeah. It wasn't until you made that comparison that I was like, you know what? Yeah, because it sounds like Russian Circles a lot in the more somber moments. They just do such a perfect job going from quiet and somber and peaceful to exploding into something heavy, and then oftentimes the ends of the songs are where they're the most heavy. The end of Rare Bird.
Cool.
Oh, man.
That's a little COALESCE reminder.
So is the end of Pillow Talk. That, again, is another just heavy, heavy banger. And I wouldn't call any of this necessarily riffy as much as I would heavy droning.
Yeah. Pillow Talk in particular stands out as probably like the heaviest track. Yeah. Like, it's just dark, it's plotting, it has just disgusting guitars. But much like a lot of this, even when it's heavy, it's still very melodic. Like, you get some big, lush melodies on there. There's even like this kind of cool proggy kind of moment in there where you get some, I don't know, like alt-metal, alt-prog. I don't know, there's something to it that's just like that 90s kind of heavy sound. Like, I got a lot of that on Dead Ringer, which, I mean, there's a vibe there. Like, there's stuff that sounds like Tool, again, Catatonia, Sermon, Sullen. This album has a lot of vibes to it, and again, like a lot of emotional connectivity. And probably the end of it is where, like, it all kind of comes together in terms of building to the biggest heights, because Dead Ringer, man, that song, again, this steady build, it's catchy as hell. Like, honestly, it's one of the catchiest songs on the album. It's like over 10 minutes, I believe. It's the longest track on the album, I think. It pretty much builds up and then it hits this, like, I wouldn't call it a plateau because it keeps building. It's like a steady incline. Like, you're climbing this mountain of a song, and it is absolutely huge. And then when it finally ends, the big, like, I made it to the top. The only logical thing they could have done, because they built the song up so much, was to close it on something very quiet, very intimate. The most intimate song on here, Mama. Man, beautiful, somber, kind of like, I don't know, campfire, sort of on the beach vibe. Like, there's waves, there's ambience, and there's Sean and an acoustic guitar, and that's kind of all you needed.
It's almost like a lullaby, and it's 1,000% what I wanted. I told Nick right before it started, I said, I really hope that the last song is somber and peaceful, and it was perfection. I wouldn't have changed anything about that whatsoever. It's all of what I wanted, and the lyrics, man, ooh, the lyrics are dark, because obviously you can hear most of them, and most of this record lyrically is what I would compare to speaking with your therapist.
Yeah, it's very human. Yep. The last track in particular, there were some like darker, more intimate Radiohead vibes to it. Again, the waves crashing in the background and just hearing this, light hum of synths. And again, just Sean talking about life and such. And yeah, this album is very relatable, and not just on a lyrical level, but also on a musical level for me, because like this kind of does everything that I want post-metal to do, and it actually adds some stuff to it in terms of like just some different kinds of hooks. Like, this has like flat out catchiness to it. Like, this isn't all about ambience and atmosphere and droning, menacing darkness. Like, this has like just flat out hooks, like songs that, might have made it on the radio in the 90s, Maybe if they weren't so long and they weren't so screamy because, oh my God, they're screaming about the devil or something. That's not my mom. That's probably his mom.
That's probably still my mom, actually. So.
But yeah, overall, in terms of any complaints in here, I don't have any. I really don't. Like, this was a really awesome listen across the board. Like, I had modest expectations going into this just because of who was in it. But yeah, this exceeded them. This is an amazing, just immersive, cathartic listen. And yeah, this is probably one of my new rainy day listens for sure. And probably some night drives. And I'm going to go ahead and give it 4.5 stars. I loved this. This was great. Completely unlike Coalesce. I didn't expect Coalesce though, because I did hear the singles, but God, the songwriting, the intimacy, the explosions, like this album is very relatable in a way. Like the rage feels genuine, the angst, the just devastation in spots here. Like this album has manic fits of musical emotion and violence, and I absolutely love it. When it is heavy, it is biting and scathing. When it is intimate and soft, it's oddly soothing in a way. Sean's vocals, I had no idea he could do that. And he sounds great on here. He's got this just, very breathy delivery that I really dig, and he's still got it on the growls. Yeah, if you're a big fan of Cult of Luna, Isis, The Ocean, a little bit of Catatonia, like, I don't know, like maybe one spot of Coalesce. But yeah, just check this album out. It is absolutely amazing.
I wish I had a whole lot more to add to that, but I don't. It's also 4.5 for me. I loved every second of this record. There's not a bad track on this album at all. The ebb and flow, the contrast between, the quiet, somber moments and explosive heaviness, like it's just... It builds perfectly and it transitions perfectly, and just like, have you ever been depressed? I've been depressed, and like this kind of flows like that. It kind of flows through all the human emotions of maybe it's going to be okay, and then you start thinking about it and you get a little sad, and then once you get sad you get a little bit angry, and like all that kind of darkness and angst is all there, and it's presented so well. The production is perfect. In post-metal most specifically, like you're just looking for this kind of vibe, and you're just looking for like everything to kind of lurch and feel unsettling, and you're calm but not really. The layering is perfect. Like I loved every second of it. I didn't listen to the singles, so I didn't really know what I was getting into, but when I sat down and Nick says, well, it kind of sounds like Neurosis, and it kind of sounds like, and I was like, well, cool. I love Neurosis, but this sounds like so much more. And again, the little like nuances and little treats in here, and the addition of percussion. And if you love bands like Cult of Luna, Neurosis, The Ocean, Hangman's Chair, Cave In, Pallbearer, Sowen, Tool, Sermon, a bunch of things, you're probably really going to dig this. I would definitely recommend checking this out. I 100% guarantee I'm going to listen to this on the drive home. So
yeah, I mean, now I'm thinking about it, I think I remember the themes about this being like, it had a lot to do with like, Sean's relationship with his father and him being a father too, and like a legacy and what you leave behind, and, being better than, what you were taught, I guess. And, this is a lot of stuff that, I think of as you get older, like that's just kind of what happens. Spoiler alert for our younger viewers. You start reflecting on yourself and, thinking, man, was I a huge shithead back in my 20s, 30s, teens?
40s
currently. Yeah. It's, again, a very human listen, and I just dug the fuck out of it.
Yep.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you were new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We also have memberships. They are only 99 cents, and our lone perk is doing a members-only live stream, which we will probably be doing one sometime later this month, probably.
Probably, in theory.
420?
Sometime. Maybe on 420. I don't know. I'm going to be off, I think. I don't even know what day 420 is. What is it, Sunday? It's Easter. It's probably on a Sunday. It's probably not. It's a fucking screwy world. It's on a Sunday. Who knows? Maybe.
Maybe. Anyway, memberships are the main way to support the channel. We also still have our store, thrallsmetal.com, with our shirts and hats. That is linked down below in the video description. And if hanging out with us in a live stream that is different than the ones we usually do, kinda, maybe, if that sounds good, you can click that join button down there and be a part of that and get some extra stupid with your regular stupid.
That's actually a pretty solid descriptor. Usually it's pretty stupid, but you guys seem to like that, and we appreciate it, and we appreciate you joining or not joining. It depends, again, on how much stupid you want. We are just thankful that you are here. Tons of content coming your way, album reviews, discography rankings. We will get to at the gates, I promise. Life is crazy for us, blah, blah, blah. I know you've heard us say it, but we're going to get there. Tons of different segments. We're working on some new stuff right now that we think you guys are going to be pretty enthralled with. See what I did? Yep.
Fired.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, all this, all for you guys, all the time. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you.
Yeah, you guys absolutely roll. Tons of content coming your way. So one more big thank you because you guys are awesome.
Thank you.
And we will catch you later.